Tanks are an interesting case in Limbus company. Most people would agree on there being two main archetypes for IDs, those being support and damage, as well as the few that do a little bit of both. Yet, there is a weird subset of IDs that don't really fit into any of those three categories. Perhaps you can loosely fit them into one, but it doesn't feel quite right. These IDs are usually tanks. But what even makes up a tank anyways? Support and damage are pretty straightforward definitions, but is a tank just an ID with a lot of health? Well, in that case, what constitutes a lot of health? Is Warp Faust a tank? Well, yes, she applies debuffs and has a lot of health. She lacks aggro, though. That's surely what defines a tank, right? Right? I wish it were that easy. Base Meursault is, by all means, designed to be a tank, and yet he has no aggro in sight. Same with Mariachi Sinclair. So, how do I even talk about tanks when I don't know what they are? How about let's just define what a tank is? Easy as that. For the purposes of this video, a tank ID is one that has any one of these three things. 1. Aggro. 2. An abnormally powerful defense skill. Or 3. A health pool in the 195 plus health range. So by these definitions, Warp Faust is indeed a tank, but Liu Meursault is not a tank. This leaves us with 14 IDs to discuss. So let's begin by breaking them into groups. The debuffers. These IDs have an emphasis on debuffing the opponent, as well as having decent bulk to take attacks on their own. The Zwei IDs. Yep, they're the Zwei IDs. These IDs mostly have an emphasis on protecting others via spreading buffs like protection, while also gaining those buffs themselves. The hit me. No, really, God, please hit me. I want to feel something. I haven't felt pain in years. To feel nothing at all has made me numb. IDs. I feel like I kind of covered it in the group name, but these IDs actively gain benefit from being hit, or at the very least are highly incentivized to be. There's also the really good defense skill and maybe low stagger threshold tanks. These IDs have a really good defense skill and maybe some low stagger thresholds.
Wow, nice commentary!
Thanks, I worked hard on it. Lastly, Base Meursault. We'll talk about him at the end. I'll be going through all 14 of these IDs with varying levels of depth, and giving my thoughts on how well they perform their function as tanks, and specifically as tanks. If I say an ID is a bad tank, it does not mean they are a bad ID, and if I say they are a good tank, it doesn't necessarily mean they are a good ID. But what makes a good tank? I would say a good tank has one of these three traits. 1. Very high effective health. Effective health means not just the number you see in the bottom of the Sinner's page, but also accounting for effects like protection, defense level up, and even the defense level to an extent. 2. Interception. The main reason to bring a tank ID is to protect your smaller, more fragile IDs, so a tank ID with high speed is able to take those unwinnable clashes that another ID would take fatal damage from. 3. Not having to tank. What? I know it sounds unintuitive, but really, the best defense is a good offense. If a tank is able to win a clash and also absorb one unopposed attack in a turn, that is the true sign of an effective tank. Before we start, note that all ID information will be at Uptype 4, though I will be mentioning differences if I find it necessary. And if you want to know about what exactly changed from Uptype 3 to Uptype 4, I've got a video for that. Now, without any more delay, let's get into the groups. First, we have the debuffers. This group, duo, really, includes two IDs, Ensault and Warp Faust. Despite being very different on the surface, looking a little deeper, they are actually very similar. Both Warp Faust and Ensault have a bind and attack power down is the main focus of their kit, with Ensault applying it via his skill 2 when the opponent has 5+ nails, and Warp Faust applying bind on her skill 2 and attack power down on her skill 3. So, Warp Faust. There really isn't much more to say about Warp Faust, but first let's talk about why bind is actually a useful debuff when it comes to being a more effective tank. Say we are fighting against an abnormality. This abnormality always rolls a 5 in terms of speed. Let's say we got some unfortunate speed rolls, and now all of the attacks the abnormality does are going on to our poor Sinclair, and there's nothing we can do about it. Now, let's rewind, and instead assume we have inflicted 4 bind via Warp Faust skill 2. Now the abnormality can only roll a 1 on speed, allowing Warp Faust to take the clash on herself. Even if she loses, she's able to divert away from the vulnerable Sinclair. So, bind, to attack power down, and a relatively good health pool. Compared to other tank IDs we have coming up, this is pretty underwhelming, especially since her defense skill is very bad, so you can't really tank that way, making her effective health the lowest in this video. Overall, Warp Faust is somewhat screwed over by the definition of tank in this video, but she gets a 4 out of 10 on the effective tank scale. Now, Meursault. I don't really like this ID, but he does do tanking really well. He's already at the top tier in terms of total health, and his effective health isn't bad. Assuming you use that counter every turn to get the protection, you can soak up a lot more than 218 damage. He also has quite a bit of aggro, which is nice, since aggro does something? What does aggro do exactly? Well, take this with a grain of salt, since I could not find any official percentages or anything, but this is the simplest analogy I can give you for how aggro actually works. Imagine that, at the start of the turn, every skill slot on the field is put into a bag, and is then chosen at random by the abnormality, and that is done as many times as there are attacks to do. Now, if we use a skill that gives aggro in use, that skill slot would be given X more tokens in that bag, where X is the aggro amount. The exact odds are probably a lot less simple, and there are lots of circumstances where this rule is not followed, but that is the general idea. Aggro also does not do anything in human fights as far as I'm aware, besides maybe give you that cool glowy aura. So all that being said, aggro is pretty good if tanking is your job, and it certainly is Meursault's. His main value really does come from that skill too. He's able to apply 2 attack power down and 5 bind total next turn. 5 nails sounds steep, but a single skill 3 the turn prior ensures the enemy will have 5+ nails. His main problem comes from clashing, because he is really bad at it. His skill 1 is effectively a dead skill in a clash, but has an interesting effect if you go unopposed. The only other notable thing is the small amount of healing on the skill 3, which is increased by an okay amount depending on nails. Overall, Meursault is an effective tank who only loses some points for not being able to win clashes particularly well, and needing a bit of RNG or patience to set up his debuffs when not on an Encore team. He gets an 8.5 out of 10 for effectiveness. So those were the debuffers. They are a strange duo, but I really would like more tanks that fall into this category. It's a shame these two don't really fit into more teams, since you'd be losing significant value on both of them by not running them with their respective archetypes. Let's move on though. The Zwei ID section contains the Zwei IDs. I don't know what you expected, but specifically Zwei Gregor, Zwei Faust, Zwei Rodian, and Zwei Sinclair. Though, funnily enough, they really shouldn't be grouped together. Let me explain. Zwei Gregor and Zwei Faust are fine. They released on the same banner, so it makes sense they would have similar mechanics, and they do. Sinclair and Rodian, though, feel like completely different IDs, both from each other and from Gregor and Faust. Let's start with Zwei Rodian. As a disclaimer, I do not own this ID, and I am too broke on Ego Shard crates to afford her. I swear. But anyways, since the last time I talked about this ID in the Uptight tier list, my thoughts have settled on her. This is a weird ID. Relying on poise count to gain tankiness was not on the bingo card for ID releases, but I guess this is what we got. Her numbers are not great. Her skill 1 is a throwaway skill, actively thrown into the mix, basically to just lose a clash. Except it's kind of hard to do that when your speed is so low. Thankfully, she has aggro. Regardless, Zwei Rodian is maybe alright at tanking. The problem lies in being reliant on constantly gaining poise count, meaning she can't really be the most effective guard spammer if you want any further value out of her. The 15+ shield requirement is a strange trend. Her effective health is decently high, and she gains a large amount of aggro, alongside a strong 20 roll on her defensive skill. Overall, Zwei Rodian gets a 5 out of 10 for effectiveness. Her confusing way of tanking, alongside numbers that are just alright, means she lands about in the middle. This is far better than what her Uptight 3 state would get, but that does not say much. Zwei Sinclair. I don't really know what to say. He got a little bit better from Uptight 4, being able to spread protection around is nice. The problem comes from it being spread around. You can't rely on Zwei Sinclair to protect one person. His passive isn't even as good as you might think. It is easy to activate and the bonus is not bad, but he's so slow, which means it's very likely this passive only hits one person, as it is only adjacent allies, and if there's only one person adjacent, he will only give it to that one ID. I have no idea when this would even be useful though. There's too many RNG factors to make his protection spreading anything more than, oh man, I lost a clash, but thank god I'm taking 10% less damage from it. The only time this is useful is with the second tank on the team, which, okay, sure, this is a use case, but other than that, his skill 3 can win clashes, which is an upside, but his skill 1 and 2 both roll a 10. So outside of very easy clashes, you are banking on the skill 3 alone. Overall, Zwei Sinclair is not a very strong contender for a slot on your team. Maybe someone in the comments can explain what I'm missing, but I just can't see it. He gets a 5.5 out of 10 for effectiveness, simply because he can get some protection on himself and make use of it with aggro, but he doesn't do anything besides that. Alright, let's break up the mediocrity with the funny nicotine addict, Zwei Gregor. I instantly went with this guy on release since, I'm a hopeless Gregor simp. Hell, my Steam review for the game is I want to be just like Bug Guy. Either way, this ID doesn't seem great on paper. He doesn't seem bad either, since his skill 2 has what I have dubbed I can cook anything numbers, which is always pretty good for damage. In terms of being a tank though, Gregor falls into a very nice niche in my opinion, and I like it very much thematically for being a Zwei ID. He acts as one of those intercepting IDs, with extremely high speed that's only beaten by 7 Outis. He will almost always be able to intercept an attack on the field in abnormality-like fights. Also, this is the only ego I will mention in this video, but with the 4 paralyzed on Leisure Domain, a Zwei Gregor going first can absolutely devastate opponents. In terms of effective health, I don't even really know where to begin. He gains a lot of shield on Clash Lose for his skill 1, which is nice, but the main mechanic really is stacking up those defense level ups. In fact, his skill 3 gives 3 defense level up to every ally next turn, which is about equivalent to 1 protection. This makes Zwei Sinclair even less relevant. The coin power on his skill 3 is relatively easy to activate, and it makes him roll a 17, which is pretty good for clashing. All you need to do to get this active, with no outside help, is use your skill 2 the turn prior, giving you 2 defense level ups and aggro, so you should have an attack targeting you. Then you ignore that attack and clash with another one. Now 2 attacks are targeting you, activating his passive. Meaning once you activate the skill 3, you would have 7 defense level ups. This was a bit more in-depth to his kit since his ID is new and people don't really know what to think about him yet, so I figured I would clarify how I believe he should work. Overall, I love this design, and I don't just mean Gregor himself, though I do also mean that. His effectiveness is a 9 out of 10 for tanking, simply because he fits all 3 categories of what makes a good tank. High effective health, interception, and can win clashes. And the last Zwei ID. Welcome to almost objectively better Zwei Sinclair. Zwei Faust is an interesting supportive tank. Don't get it twisted. Her clashing and damage is pretty good, considering her passive is really nice, providing 2 defense level up to adjacent allies. Oh, but what is this? An average speed range? I'm sorry, I can't help but make fun of Zwei Sinclair, but this means it is far more likely that you can actually hit 2 allies with this passive, and it is owned Gloom, meaning this triggers always. The defense level ups double when the allies are below 50% health, which is a substantial increase. One thing to note is that her skill 3 defense level up and haste does not specify as it being next turn. Thankfully, it does apply next turn, otherwise this would be worthless, and you might be seeing a thumbnail like this in your future. Outside of that, there isn't much more to say about Zwei Faust. She's pretty good, especially compared to the other 2-star Zwei IDs. She gets a 6.5 out of 10 as a tank. She doesn't do anything super well, but she spreads tankiness in a far better way than Zwei Sinclair, and at least she doesn't force you to make sure to use 2 Gloom skills to activate her passive. But wait, I missed something. Does she- wait, let me clean my glasses, this can't be right. She heals 4 HP on Clash Win on her skill 3? That at least doubles her effective health. I can't believe I missed such an important line in her kit. 10 out of 10, easily. So that's it for the Zwei IDs. A pretty mixed bag, but all of them are at least usable in my opinion. Though Zwei Rodian absolutely requires Uptie 4 to use. The others like it of course, but she needs it. I really don't like Rodian or Sinclair much, so I'm really glad I enjoy both Faust and Gregor's kits, at least in the short amount of time I have had them. The third group is the Hit Me IDs. This includes K-Corp Hong Lu, Rhino Meursault, Warp Meursault, and Sloshing Ishmael. Ugh. Let's deal with her first. Sloshing Ishmael is a good tank. At Uptie 4, she gains about 19 health and shield every turn she doesn't deal damage. So if you want a tank to literally sit there and do nothing, go crazy. The thing I don't like about this ID specifically is that her skill 3 is actually good at winning clashes, but it is awful for Tremor, since it reduces Tremor count by 4 for such a minor benefit. And since you can actually win a clash with that skill 3, you never want to use it, so you just spam guard. How horribly boring. Maybe I'm wrong, but seriously, all she has going for her is a very high effective health amount. She's a 6 out of 10 for effectiveness, but don't blame me for the brain cells you lose for using this ID. Meursault is an ID I almost omitted from this list, but he is rewarded pretty nicely for using his guard and getting hit, and he is fast enough to intercept clashes with decent numbers. His only problem is not having very high health to sustain taking all that damage. This is ignoring ego, of course, since Pursuance or Fluid Sac means that is not an issue. This is another tank that needs Uptie 4, since his Uptie 3 state is about as worthless as side characters in Kanto 1. At Uptie 4, though, he is pretty competent, unlike side characters in Kanto 1, so long as you maintain that 5+ charge. His main benefit really is that high speed, allowing him to use his decent guard skill to take the hit or clash with his skill 2 or 3. So while his numbers do leave a little bit to be desired, W. Meursault is an alright support/interception tank. His tank effectiveness is just barely a 7 out of 10. Rhino Meursault next, and he is quite good. He's very similar to W. Meursault, and that's a byproduct of them both being charge reliant. They also both fall into the interception category of tanks, though Rhino Meursault needs a little bit of time to go really fast. Kind of like an African/Asian land animal whose name escapes me at this time. Unlike that land animal, Rhino Meursault gets stronger the more he is hit. Charge-wise, of course. His skill 3 is an excellent clasher, rolling a 21 at 10+ charge count. His main downside is not having any real damage prevention outside of clashing skills and a defensive skill of 20. That being said, taking no damage due to simply winning the clash is superior to taking a small amount of damage. Rhino Meursault gets an 8.5 out of 10, simply for his insane top speed, which makes you very likely to be able to intercept those clashes and potentially win them. No one else is even close to the level of tanking that K-Corp Honglu can provide. His effective health is at least 1000. That is a low ball estimate. He clashes better than all of these IDs, with an 11/14, 16, and a 16/20. Combine that with high aggro on every skill besides his third, and you have an ID whose only weakness is being slow like a tank should be. Oh, wait, no, he's only a little bit below average speed, meaning this guy can also intercept. Oh, and I forgot to mention that he gets 3 lives if you play him right. I would give him an 11 out of 10 if I could, and I can, so I will. K-Core Honglu is the perfect tank ID. He's fun to use, stupidly tanky, not horribly slow, has a team he fits on in the form of Rupture, and he's got that cool effect like Rabbit Heathcliff and Rhino Meursault where he puts on the helmet and talks all differently. Borderline broken. So those are all of the please hit me IDs. They are all relatively simple, but on average, these are the strongest tank IDs. Though that's perhaps due to one particular ID boosting the rest, like me getting carried by the YouTube algorithm. If you're in this far, by the way, thank you for watching. Man, there was a shill caught in my throat. Anyways, let's get back into the video. Fourth up, the strong defense skill tanks. LCCB Ishmael, 7 Outis, and Mariachi Sinclair. All of these are a little weird. The weirdest probably being Mariachi Sinclair, because he's the only ID in this video with an evade defense skill, which is far superior to guard in almost every way, so long as you hit heads. If Mariachi Sinclair just had aggro, this would be a really useful ID, since your effective health becomes infinite on any attacks that roll below a 16. Unfortunately, this is not the case, so Mariachi Sinclair is left at the hands of RNG. Even more so since his skills suck on a team that is not a sinking heavy one, so unlike every other ID on this list, except for maybe Zwei Sinclair, Mariachi Sinclair struggles to gain sanity from clash wins unless he starts off with a lucky skill 3. This severely hurts his viability, since missing heads on an evade skill is far worse than missing it on a guard. And so, Mariachi Sinclair kind of becomes the gambling man's tank. If you can get enemies to focus him somehow, you are nicely rewarded with poise count and no damage taken. If not, he is virtually worthless, since this guy isn't intercepting anything. Reminds me of another Sinclair ID. Okay, I'll stop bullying him. Enough Zwei Sinclair slander. Mariachi Sinclair gets a 5.5 out of 10 for tankiness, for being a bit too reliant on RNG to start, but once the ball gets rolling, he will do alright. LCCB Ishmael next. This is another wacky one. I talked about N-Corp Heathcliff being a hybrid ID in my last video, but LCCB Ishmael really is all 3. Support, damage, and tank. However, does she perform the tank role well? No. She's a one-trick pony. She can use her guard to gain aggro, and additional aggro when she's out of bullets, and it's a good guard skill and all, but that's it. I don't even have any jokes. Sorry, I checked my bag of jokes just now and only found Zwei Sinclair in it. LCCB Ishmael is a 3 out of 10 on tank effectiveness. 7 Association South Section 6 Director Outis. Man, I understand why we use abbreviations. 7 Outis is similar to LCCB Ishmael on paper, but actually does a lot more right. She has slightly higher health, much higher speed, better clashing numbers, and inflicts Paralyze next turn on her skill 1, as opposed to same turn for LCCB Ishmael. All of that combined with a guard skill that gets better the next turn you use it, if only by a little, means 7 Outis is actually incredibly effective if you choose to use her as just a fast interceptor with her guard. I have personally done this on the MyForm Empty's hard mirror dungeon fight. I went into this video thinking 7 Outis would be kind of bad, but she actually is a very effective high-speed tank. She gets an 8 out of 10 for hitting all 3 requirements of a good tank. The strong defense skill tanks are an interesting subcategory. You could make the argument for 7 Outis being a debuffer instead, and it's fair, but she isn't quite on the same level as those other 2 debuffers. Mariachi Sinclair and LCCB Ishmael, though, are both very strange tanks. Lastly, the odd one out, Base Meursault. Weird, right? The most traditional tank in the game, and he doesn't really fit any of these categories. He applies Tremor, but that's not a debuff we care about for tanking purposes. He's not part of the Zwei. He's not rewarded for being hit. He doesn't have aggro, nor is his defense skill particularly good. So where does that leave Base Meursault? I don't really know. All things considered, his numbers are not that terrible at Uptype 4, though that offense level is atrocious, and the +3 to defense level matters less since his guard is the second worst on the list. So what is his purpose? I don't think he has one. The only good thing he gets is 3 protection on his skill 3. I'm giving him a 2.5 out of 10 on tank effectiveness. This guy just can't keep up. That's all of them. I really do think tanks as a whole are somewhat underrated, but it makes sense why. Tanks are very different. They encourage you to slow down, especially IDs like Sloshmill that straight up don't want to deal damage outside of measly rupture potency. Part of the problem is they also require that Uptype 4 investment, which just simply isn't worth it for some IDs. Meursault is also part of the problem. As you may have noticed, he was on this list 4 times, meaning 4 out of the 14 tanks are on 1 Sinner. This means it's likely you just uptie your favorite Meursault 3-star and then move on, since it's likely you don't care to have multiple tanks at Uptype 4. So are tanks in a healthy spot in Limbus Company? I think yes, strangely enough. Even though I bash certain tanks in this video, that's just because all I did was be mediocre at tanking. That's just how it is sometimes. Not every ID is going to be the K-Core Pong Lu of tanking. That being said, I would love to know what you guys think of the tank IDs you use, if you use them at all. I think Zweigregor takes the cake in terms of animations and playstyle for me. That's all from me. Thank you for watching. This video ends